G'day everyone, welcome to Footyology Final Siren, our qualifying final edition after an emphatic victory by Port Adelaide over Geelong, the power into another preliminary final repeat of last year, qualifying final victory over the same opponent, no less. The power's seventh preliminary final in their history, so a pretty successful little spell in AFL company. This has been Geelong, very, very disappointing tonight. Can the Cats come back? They did it last year. Have they got it in them to rebound and win their way through to another grand final? We're here to discuss the whole game, break it down in vast and graphic detail. Most importantly, we're here to take your questions, not just on this game, but the rest of the finals this weekend. Anything on your football agenda, you can send your questions through. Whether you're watching this on Twitter or Facebook, send them through and we will tune through as many as we possibly can, as is our fashion. As I say, very good evening to my Footyology Final Siren co-host, Mark Fine. Well, a thumping win to the power, Finey, very impressive.
Certainly was. They probably by halfway through the first quarter seemed to have wrested control of the game style. And that was always going to be telling, wasn't it? Because Geelong denied their possession game through foot passing. Don't really have, I think, a B plan in the final series, at least, against better teams to come out on top. And what followed there afterwards was a procession, very enjoyable for the 20,000, I would say 19,000 Port fans in attendance.
I thought they were really fumbly tonight. They looked susceptible to pressure and look, for all Port's enterprise, and they've kicked 12-14. I thought their pressure game was definitely the highlight of their win. They just made the Cats panic, and time and again, Geelong gave the ball back in dangerous positions too, several times inside 50. Probably the standout for me, that Dangerfield kick across ground that Charlie Dixon put pressure on. Dixon got the handball over to Motlop and a goal resulted, but that happened several times. They missed targets and put themselves under pressure. And by the end, there was a lot of inferred pressure going on. Geelong players panicking when they actually had more time than they thought. Really disappointing performance from them. I thought they looked slow. Like I said, they looked fumbly. Look, they're an experienced side. They're mentally strong, but I think there's got to be big question marks about whether they can pull something out of the fire. What about Port, Finey? How dramatically does this change your perception of them and their premiership capabilities?
Well, I said even 3 weeks ago that just the way the ladder was formed, they really only needed to find hold on to that spot in the top four and be one game away from playing in the grand final. Now, the fact that they finished top two in the shuffle up and were able to get that first home final made it even more likely. We don't know yet where the venue is for the preliminary final, but there is some suggestion that if numbers are controlled, it could be in South Australia, which makes them an odds-on proposition to play in a grand final. And the good news for them is playing against a Victorian team, most likely, they will not be playing at the MCG, most probably. So they're right in it. And to be able to welcome back Orazio Fantasia and see him kick 4 goals, yes, he went off with knee soreness, but I think that's part of his 2021 footballing life. But to have him in the team looked to be an excellent addition, didn't it, Ray?
It did, and Mitch Georgiades is more than likely available for that preliminary final as well. And of course, they did lose a preliminary final to a Victorian team on home turf last year. Big difference this year, however. They will not have had to, they won't be facing a side that has had the benefit of a week's break. So I think that could make a huge difference. Get your questions in, everyone, whether it be on Twitter or Facebook. We'll start ripping through them in a minute. Before we do that, let's have a run through the details, both the scores, goal kickers and best. And Port Adelaide really led from go to woe, started things rolling with a pretty good first quarter, 4-3 to the Cats 2-5 at the first break. Another 4 goals to just 1 in the second term, and that lead had blown out to 29 points at halftime already. Geelong in a bit of bother, even deeper bother by three-quarter time because the Cats remained goalless in that third term. Of course, Port adding just 1 themselves, but really dominating territory, 1-3 in fact in that third term. And the lead was out to 35 points at the final change. It was going to take something very special from them. And any chance pretty much eliminated within 21 seconds of the start of the final term when Fantasia kicked his 4th goal of the evening. Couple of quick ones to the Cats, but that only brought it back to 31 points. And then the medical sub, Sam Powell-Pepper, who came on to replace Fantasia, he kicked the final 2 goals of the game to put a bit of icing on the cake. Port Adelaide, in the end, victors by 43 points. The final scores, Port 12-14, 86, defeating the Cats 5-13, 43. The goal kickers for the Power, 4 to Fantasia, 2 to Motlop, 2 to Powell-Pepper, singles to Gray, Laddams, Marshall and Zach Butters. For the Cats, 2 to Tom Hawkins and singles to Cameron Simpson and Selwood. The best, as voted by you, Mark Fine. Travis Boak, you've given BOG to, fair enough too, I think, 32 disposals for Travis Boak tonight. Fantasia, 4 goals to Fantasia, valuable performance from him. Ollie Wines also ended up with 32 disposals, and having Wines and Boak been unbelievable as a duo over the last few weeks. Next on your best list, Tom Jonas, very resolute in defence. Ryan Burton, who was really good tonight, very creative. And speaking about defenders, Aaliyah, newly crowned All-Australian and just unpassable in that first term. I think it was 4 intercept marks in the first quarter alone. Quietened a little bit after that, but still plenty of influence. And Geelong just could not find a target in their forward 50. For the Cats, you've gone best. Mitch Duncan, pretty good return from him. 32 disposals he ended up with. The next best for the Cats, 23. So he really dominated their possession list. Ollie Henry, pretty valiant effort from him in defence. Isaac Smith never stopped working and running. Paddy Dangerfield had his moments. I thought he did what he could to lift them. 23 touches for Paddy. Brandon Parfitt and Tom Hawkins, who, in fairness to him, really didn't get many opportunities tonight. Any apologies from those best, Finey?
Well, Jack Henry, not Ollie Henry.
Sorry.
Did I put down Ollie Henry?
Yeah.
Was that me? Did I write Ollie Henry? Anyhow, it doesn't matter. Jack Henry. And look, I reckon if you were giving the 3-2-1 votes, it was quite difficult, wasn't it? Port Adelaide was such an even performance. Travis Boak, was great. The other players, there are some apologies. I thought Bonner was good. A player that doesn't, probably in their bottom 6, doesn't get a lot of credit. Lysette continues to do well around the ground. Actually, Stanley was all right, so he wasn't terrible. But no, I'm pretty comfortable with those. I'll say a couple of things. Your mate BT, he just can't admit when he gets something wrong. So he said, Powell-Pepper 2 goals, came on for Fantasia, who kicked 3 goals when it mattered. Then he comes back about 5 minutes later, he goes, well, he actually kicked 4 goals, but only 3 when it mattered.
I heard that.
I would have thought that first goal of the last quarter mattered as well, but he decided it didn't.
Well, we can have a talk about our favourite subject later. I might say a few words about last night's All-Australian presentation come Suburban Football Club Pie Night, because that's basically what it looked like to me, the standard of hosting of that show. All right, we have a million comments banking up, so let's start ripping through them. Larry Hill, well done, Port, but at a minimum, Aaliyah required a defensive forward who could mark. Jack Henry forward was a no-brainer. Quick response from you, Finey.
Oh, no, look, you've got to shore up your defence as well, and they were under siege, so he did particularly well on Dixon. No, they've got enough tall forwards. They needed to compete more. Well, Gary Rowan being isolated on Alira was never going to work out, was it? But they simply needed either to lower their eyes going into the forward line and realise that they can't just stick it up in the air in an area where Alira is, or players had to compete more earnestly. Look, they've got a great small forward set up, Port Adelaide. We know that. And early, that's how they got on the board. First goal was to Motlop, I think. Second goal to Robbie Gray, Orazio Fantasia. So it really paid dividends. Geelong small forwards, they're not goal kickers. Look, there is some beauty of Dalhouse that Chris Scott sees that I don't. I'm sorry, I just do not see it. Myers and Close are good, but they work better further up the ground. They're not deadly around goals. So, yes, Alira was dominant in the air, but I don't think that when the ball hits the ground, they've got anything.
Well, just 6 disposals to Dalhouse tonight, so he's placing aside. You think it'd have to be in a bit of jeopardy. Might open the door for my little mate Max Holmes to come back into that side. Might have been a bit stiff to get dropped. David Haley says, as a Geelong supporter, I have a theory. Scott has a year left on contract. Clarkson a year off, as we know. Chris has a terrible finals record. Geelong should throw dollars at Clarkson for 2023. Thoughts? Look, I have defended Chris Scott a fair bit. Is it a coaching issue? What is it about Geelong in finals? Is it a coaching issue? I don't necessarily see it as a coaching issue, but I don't have an alternative explanation for why their record in finals hasn't been great.
You know, you're just on Clarkson to Geelong. You put yourself in Clarko's boots. Now, he at the moment is considered one of the great coaches of all time. So he should be. When he comes back to coaching, I think he'd be looking for a challenge with a team that hasn't made the finals or hasn't had a big say in finals or won grand finals in recent memory. You know, why would he go to Geelong where really the record of Scott has been fantastic, and he could, his own sort of coaching record and his own place in the pantheon could be really risked by going to Geelong. Now, he'll end up at where you think he'll end up, Rowan.
Gold Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say, no, I'm not saying this is a slight on him. I think he'll go where the best offer is in terms of dollars. He's going to be able to have his pick. I don't see why his need for a challenge would be so great that it would usurp a huge dollar offer, and that is where Gold Coast can win the battle for his services because it's bankrolled by the AFL, basically.
Correct.
Let's keep moving. Trout, g'day Trout, says, hello boys, not one of the Geelong recruits from other teams stood up tonight. Not one. Well, you had Isaac Smith in your best, Finey.
Yep. Yeah, I thought he was all right.
I thought he was all right as well. Rowan, very disappointing. I'm sure we'll get some questions about Gary Rowan. Just ponder this and we'll come back to it. But I did a stock take of his finals record. Before tonight, he'd played 20 finals, averaged 8.8 disposals and kicked a total of 14 goals. He's had 11 out of 20 finals in which he's returned fewer than 10 disposals. So that is an issue. He has got considerable monkey on the back in terms of his finals record. All right, Ryan asks, what are the chances of Port getting an Adelaide Oval home prelim? How long's a piece of string, Ryan? I mean, it's totally dependent upon where the COVID situation is in 2 weeks. I mean, and if you're unaware, Western Australia tonight recording a couple of positives. I think a couple of truck drivers who'd been through Victoria and South Australia. That hasn't changed plans for the moment. I think Geelong were due to go to Perth straight away after this game. So, yeah, look, it's 2 weeks away. Who knows what could happen, hopefully. I mean, look, in terms of fairness, you'd like to see them be able to host a prelim, wouldn't you, Finey?
Yes, I would. In terms of fairness, I'd like to see Tasmania host the grand final.
Why, Clarence playing or?
No, No, just because they were not sufficiently respected in the recent report about a 19th team in the AFL, and this will be their much-deserved moment in the sun, at least for the time being.
All right, we'll stay mainly on this game, but a quick digression. JDST says, how much does Nick Hind missing hurt the Bombers' chances on Sunday? It does. I would say very quickly, it does. His run is very important, and I don't think there's anyone who can replace that. They might look at playing Andy McGrath off half-back or let him do the bounces and then play a defensive mid-type role. But in terms of actual, replacing his presence in that back six, it's probably down to Martin Gleeson, who doesn't offer nearly the same drive. So it's a big loss and it's a big price to pay for a salad sandwich. Jimmy Cavalier says, Cats out in straight sets, old and done. What do you think of that one, Finey? What at this very early stage, they will be playing the winner of GWS and Sydney. What would you assess their percentage chances of a win at this stage?
About 60. We always jump off the team that loses in the first week of the finals.
Yep, we tend to.
Yeah, I think they'll be pretty well placed to play those two teams, to be honest.
Well, last year, of course, we had two qualifying final losers ending up playing off in the grand final, which was the first.
Yes.
But look, I haven't done my numbers recently, but there is a nasty habit of everyone jumping off whoever loses a qualifying final on those teams subsequently hitting back. I mean, the Cats did lose to Sydney earlier this year, and they've also lost to GWS. So, give it a day or two, I think, before you look at that one. Brett Rufus says, on the power, Aliir, what a gun. He is a gun. He is a gun. Got to be recruit of the year in terms of someone picked up from another senior side. And I think you and I, Finey, both sort of had trouble understanding why Sydney let him go, with comparative ease. I thought he was great for them as well. He just seemed to fall out of favour now and again under John Longmire, but he has been superb for the power.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with falling in and out of favour with Longmire. Remember, he had a good first year.
Yeah, 2016.
And then he didn't play in the second year.
Yeah, I think he missed the grand final, didn't he? 2016, might have got injured and missed games towards the end of the year. But then the following year, he sort of fell out of favour and, sort of came back into favour. And then, I don't know, I mean, I guess...
Played a couple of different positions too, didn't he? They tried him in ruck a bit. Yeah,
he spent some time in the ruck, that's true. But his judgment, and I think this is always obvious with him, even in those early days at Sydney, he had great judgment obviously showed that superbly tonight. But he's got everything. He's got height and strength, so he can hold his own in the marking contest, but also the mobility to zone off and intercept and offer a fair bit of rebound. So, probably the one biggest Achilles heel we thought maybe with Port this year was that lack of a big, strong, big enough, strong enough key defender to cope with the monsters. Aliir hasn't ended up playing that sort of role, but I think it enables the likes of Jonas, or Cleary's not in the side at the moment, but those, bigger defensive types to concentrate more fully on whoever the opposition key forwards are, correct?
Spot on. It's obviously knocked probably Tom Cleary out of the team, but that's okay because they needed that bigger body. I will say this, if you're playing against Aliir, or you're supporting the team that's playing against him, keep your fingers crossed that he drops his first mark or two. There is a certain confidence level with Aliir, and if he just takes that first mark cleanly, then his confidence builds and he puts himself in the frame for a lot more marking throughout the game.
Right, Michael Cowan says, Scott lauded as a matchday strategist, outcoached in qualifying finals. Small forwards again show up their back half.
Yep.
I think that's a fair comment. I think they're, who's Geelong's smallest defender? It's probably Jed Hughes.
Atkins, if he plays
there. That's true. Atkins has been moved back there. It is Atkins, you're right. Good spot. But I didn't notice him much tonight, did you?
No, didn't.
just having a quick look at his disposals, he ended up with 11 disposals for the game, so he hasn't given them much. Gee, they had a few players tonight that didn't give much. I just very quickly, Reece Stanley, 6 disposals, Dowhouse, 6, Buse, 7, Blitzarves, 8, Collar Jasny, 10. I mean, okay, some of them are defenders, but you want at least 1 or 2 of your defenders to be heading up towards the 20 disposal mark, I think, because otherwise you're not... the ball's sort of hanging around that back 50 way too long, and that was a real issue tonight. Port were able to really trap that ball inside the forward 50 and keep applying the pressure until Geelong sort of inevitably made a mistake.
Well, I know who should be dropped out of that back line.
Who's that?
Henderson.
Yeah, he had a bad
terrible.
one.
I mean, he dropped that mark that Dangerfield kicked across ground. It was a chest mark.
Yeah.
In the first quarter, I think he coughed up the first goal when the ball was kicked short to him and he just wasn't quick enough to move it on. And then that very awkward play when he tried to punch the ball. I don't know what he was doing. He got his body contorted and off a bad kick across ground by Port Adelaide, and Fantasia picked it up and goaled. But yeah, bar the injury to O'Connor, I think Henderson would not play next week.
Well, his confidence was visibly shaken, because I thought when I mentioned the amount Geelong was fumbling tonight, I thought he was probably one of the worst offenders. Yeah. Darren Rockawin says, "Hi, RoCo and Finey. I brought Port to your attention a few weeks ago, and Rowan, you didn't believe they were a bona fide contender, as they hadn't beaten anyone of note in the top 8. Hope you've changed your mind a lot." Yes, I have, Darren. Well, how could you not? They're 1 win away from the grand final. They've knocked over the Bulldogs, who were on top of the ladder 3 weeks ago. Now they've knocked off Geelong, who were on top of the ladder for their share of the season. So, look, I think I'm sure you'd agree, Darren, they're playing to a higher level now than they were for much of this season. Having said that, and this probably has been overlooked a bit, Port's won 10 of its last 11 games now, Finey. So they have been very, very consistent over the back half of the season.
Yeah, they've been good. And they found their form, surprisingly, I think, at Marvel Stadium, when they were, of course, in this unusual season, forced to play a few games there, including a couple of home games, and they weren't brilliant, but they started winning games there, looked good. I'll say this, it's going to be harder to win a premiership than beating a team as Geelong played tonight. Of course it is. To win the flag, Dixon has to start playing more like he did in the first half of the year, I believe. Marking, kicking goals.
Yep, no, fair enough. Robert Rice says, since 2011, Geelong's record for the first week of finals now stands at 1 win and 8 losses.
Yeah.
Hate to say it about my team, but we've earned the chokers tag. Yeah, I dispute. Look, I don't dispute the fact they've been poor. I dispute the chokers thing, because to me, it depends on your definition. But to me, a choke is someone who gets into a winning position and then doesn't end up winning. And quite a few of these finals now, Geelong hasn't been in that position. Not necessarily specifically the first week of the finals, but I mean, preliminary final against Sydney 2016, conceded 7-1 the first quarter, game over. 2017 preliminary final against Adelaide, thrashed, beaten by 10 goals. 2018 elimination final, never really in the hunt against Melbourne. I don't know. I mean, what do you regard as a choke, Finey? You can't just look at a loss and say that's a choke.
No, of course not. I think you can maybe look at 1 win out of 9 and say that's a choke. I'll ask you this, Rowan. There has been some criticism in the last few days of Luke Beveridge, because they missed out on the top 4, and people point out that he has never coached the Bulldogs to a top 4 finish, but he has a premiership. On the other hand, Chris Scott, obviously, of recent times, he's got a flag as well, but of recent times, he has been a coach whose team has squandered top 4 positions. So which do you think is the greatest black mark on a coach? Not making the top 4, or making it and not utilising it?
Oh, probably the latter. I mean, I regard Luke Beveridge's coaching performance in 2016 as one of the all-time great coaching performances. Not just because of what happened in the final series, but that whole year. They had a heap of injuries. He rotated his squad consistently, and that worked very well. to be able to lift a team to 4 finals wins on the trot from 7th place, etc., etc. I would still defend Chris Scott, though. I think, you have to be a pretty good coach to get a side consistently to the heights he has over the home and away rounds. I would argue that most of those campaigns that have ended in a preliminary final loss or a semi-loss or whatever, they haven't quite been good enough. That's not the case this year. This year, look, if you were to rank their finals losses since 2011, this would rank as one of the worst couple, if not the worst, actually, because they were never really in it, and against a side that they handled with relative ease when they beat them in the home and away season at the same venue. Something wasn't right with them tonight.
Yeah. I mean, just quickly, I'd say Chris Scott, I think he's an excellent coach. He's kept this team going and going and going, and that defies the draft and salary cap concept. I find Luke Beveridge an unorthodox coach whose premiership success, as you say, was based on a lot of rotation, and it might have been pure genius, but since then, I think that has been the formula for his downfall, to be honest. And
in what way?
He just does things that don't make any sense. I mean, he's got Tim English in the team, but he doesn't ruck him. He rucks Lewis Young in a key game. This is a guy that just sort of overnight had a superstar in his team, and then the guy went to another club, Essendon being the beneficiary. I mean, the loss of Jake Stringer is little talked about, but it makes no sense. He was an absolute pivotal part of winning a premiership. Gone. Very unusual. And many other things. Mitch Wallace, completely not an AFL footballer, apparently, even though last year he found himself a spot in the team that was very valuable. I don't understand why from round one this year that didn't exist anymore. I find many things he does unusual. Hayden Crozier has gone from being one of the best defenders in the competition last year to in and out of the team every week. I don't get it.
He has a bit of a treat them mean, keep them keen policy, I think, and I would argue overall that works. Anyway, look, they're playing on Sunday, so we'll come back to that. Ryan says, Port looks better with one less tall. If Georgiades comes back, Marshall has to go out. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, you'd have Georgiades, Marshall, Laddams occasionally, and Dixon. It's pretty top-heavy, I suppose. But, I mean, it all depends who they play, doesn't it? So Port in the preliminary will play either Melbourne, Brisbane, Western Bulldogs or Essendon, correct?
I don't think it matters who it plays, Rowan.
What do you mean?
I don't think Marshall's a very good footballer. You know that goal he kicked tonight?
Yeah.
That was almost the worst thing he did.
Kick your goal.
Well, the ball came over the back of the pack and he marked it and he just spun around and snapped it. Went through.
Yeah.
He could have steadied. He could have gone back.
Are you sure that wasn't off hands, though, and called play on?
No, the umpire called. I heard the whistle. It was a mark.
All
but
right.
whatever. Anyhow, and he had, look, I'll give him one thing. He must have had 200 relatives in the crowd tonight.
What was that?
Well, all these guys, COVID Marshall on their back. They must be related to Todd.
Boom. All right, Hayden Murdoch is asking you, Finey or Viney, is Ross Lyon the Jay Leno of coaching gig acquisitions?
Why Jay Leno?
Yeah, I don't get that either. What does that mean? I mean, I know Jay Leno is, but what you'll have to clarify that one for us, Hayden. We'll come back to that. AV says Henderson showed what a big loss Stewart was. Stewart's loss, Finey, and we both tipped this. It's been absolutely massive. Their backline just looks so, by comparison, sort of disorganised and haphazard. They've lost his rebound. They've lost his capacity to be that third man up and help out the other defenders. It's been a huge loss for them.
Rowan, sometimes footy fans and footy people charged with covering the game pose that hypothetical, who's the one player a team would least like to lose? I think a lot of people would have said Stewart. we did, Geelong didn't have to go through the suffering they've gone through in recent weeks to know how important he is to the team.
Well, a good indicator, and I did this last week, so I'm just going on memory here. But since he'd been out, their scores conceded per opposition inside 50 had just gone through the roof, and that was something which has been really low for them. So that's a pretty good indicator, isn't it? If if that percentage of opposition scores per inside 50 goes from sort of 24% to 40%. That indicates a level of disorganisation that wasn't there previously, I'd suggest.
Is that a black mark against Chris Scott that he's had 3 weeks or 3 matches to come up with some sort of alternative, and he's really just said, all right, he's out, we're going to have to survive without him? Should they have been trying to rejig that back line? Because it has not looked good since he's been out.
Well, it's easier said than done, though, isn't it? You've got to have a player capable of playing that role. You've got to have a player who gels with the other. I would argue that, we always talk about premiership sides back 6. Inevitably, it's the 6 that has played most of the season together and has a great sort of synergy with each other. And I think it's even more important in defence than perhaps the other sections of the ground. And I mean, it just indicates to me that they haven't got anyone capable of playing a similar role.
I'd play back.
Say it again.
I think they do have somebody who could play back there.
Yeah.
Because he has been thrust into that role occasionally, is Todd Menegola. Not Todd Menegola, the other
Sam Menegola.
Yes, Menegola.
Todd Menegola might have played that role for Richmond.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going. Stephen Smith says, does BT know any other player than Orazio or Orazio in cotton wool? I like the way the BT doesn't sort of latch onto one theme during a game and then just repeat it endlessly for the next hour. And tonight's was Port needs to take Fantasia off and make sure he doesn't get injured. We probably heard that one about 17 times, so that's always good. THX 1138 says, another final, another AWOL performance from Gary Rowan. Any ideas what the problem is there? Yeah, well, my idea is up here. Like I gave you, I don't know if you heard the stats before THX, but averaging 8.8 disposals across 20 finals, 14 goals only in 20 finals, 2 disposals tonight to half time, went to the back line and was able to get a few of those cheaper rebound disposals. Even so, only ended up with 12, I think, for the game. But he's had the one final I found when I was going through it that he did all right was I think 2014 preliminary final against North Melbourne for Sydney, and he had 23 and I think kicked a couple of goals. But it is clearly an issue for them. And look, he's not their most important player, but he's pretty important to them, and they just got nothing from him tonight. 0.
Yeah, not seemingly able to change much in his game to suit the situation, and finals are hard places to win football, to get marks and to get out on your own. Now, he's a hard leading forward who, likes the space, and aerially they were so utterly underperforming tonight, with Aliir setting that tone early. There wasn't much else that he can do to bring himself in the game, it seems. And that, I feel like one trick pony may sum him up a bit, Rowan.
Well, Tommy makes a good point. Tommy says Rowan, off his tucker, needs to hunt. A bit of a needless rejoinder there, but needs to hunt. Look, there's something in that, but I mean, he offered them nothing. He offered no defensive pressure. He wasn't flying for marks, so I didn't notice him. He was doing nothing. And the move of him to the back line was sheer desperation, really. So trying to conjure some sort of way of getting him into the game. But the sports psychologists down at Cardinia Park will be earning their dollars this week, I think, because something's got to happen there. It's just getting to crisis stage for him in terms of finals.
Yeah, and he became the pin-up boy for Aliir's monstering of the Geelong forward line just before quarter time, when on the wing he was thrust into a one-on-one with Alir, and he got removed as one would imagine a father would take care of a 7-year-old son in a game of kick to kick. And I know Wayne Carey didn't like it, did he? He was at pains to point out what a poor effort it was by Rowan. So, yeah, fair enough.
I don't think it's the first time Carey's got into Gary Rowan either. I remember another game this year where he was quite savage on him. All right, I'm just going to read through a few comments now, not questions as such. Frogger says, Henderson had a terrible night, hard hands, beaten on the lead, nervous in his disposal. Hard agree. Robert Rice said a few weeks back if they got Gray, Motlop and Fantasia back for finals, they'd be dangerous. Even without Georgiades, their forward line looks like one of the most cohesive. Alex M says, imagine if the Cats had recruited Jeremy Cameron this year. Would have been handy. That's a bit of a backhander there. He certainly wasn't conspicuous tonight. Let's just have a quick look at his stats this evening. 10 disposals, 1 goal, 4 marks for Cameron. Yeah, it was a bit of a non-event. And he tried to, what about that moment where he tried to bulldoze his play towards goal, and was it Zach Butters? Yeah, it was Zach Butters, I think, just wrapped him up in that tackle and slowed his progress to nothing.
Yeah, or second quarter for Geelong, he dropped a chest mark that he just should not have dropped. And then he regained the ball, and I thought to myself, he snapped it towards goal, and Riley Bonner ran it through.
Okay.
I just thought to myself, if he would have kicked that goal then or marked in gold, it would have turned the tide a bit. It was at exactly the wrong time to just muck your lines up a bit.
There are a few times during the evening Geelong had a chance maybe to regain some ground and couldn't take advantage of that opportunity. All right, a comment here from Ryan Finey. I'm hoping you'll answer this with a question. Ryan says, Willem Drew did a fantastic job on Selwood.
Willem who? Willem
Drew. It never gets old. He
was not sure about that, Rowan.
Well, I'm still enjoying it. He was very good. He has definitely added something to that team, I think. Would you agree that the difference between Port of last year and Port of this year, I think they are a physically tougher side this year.
And he can take a lot of credit for that. I'll say this. You asked me, I should have mentioned it when you said any apologies in the best. I really think he could have been in the best.
Okay. Apparently he's known to Jonathan Brown, or a relation of him.
Distant relative to Jonathan Brown.
Yeah, good. Just as well we said that again. Speaking of the All-Australian thing last night, Stephen Smith says, any chance of the All-Australian spelling centre the Australian way and not the American way, CENTER? I noticed that. What the hell was going on there? Can we actually... no, we'll get through a few more questions, then we'll get onto it.
Well, we will get onto it, won't we? The hosting of that program.
We will. Oh, good. You've got to be in your bonnet as well.
A certain person.
All right, no, we'll come back to it. Jeff Ward says the only way Geelong can win the flag is if they're gifted 3 wet weekends from now on. Otherwise, they're too old, too slow, and too lacking in flair. Yeah, look, I tend to agree, Jeff, except they will still pull out. I mean, last week against Melbourne, for example, that, 8-goal second quarter, they kicked 5 in about 8 minutes. But they don't do that often enough these days. And I think a key to their capacity to do that, when they're in that sort of form, Smith will be on song. Parfitt, see him not playing well, I think has hurt them. And they did look slow tonight. And talk about being beaten on the outside. In fact, just a few key stats. So Port ended up, basically, there was one real big statistical anomaly tonight, and that was that the Cats won the clearances. They won the centre bounce clearances 15-3. But what was happening was they were winning hurried clearances under fierce pressure and turning the ball over. A bit like, so Port were able to organise a response to those losses of a centre bounce in the way that we got so used to Richmond doing, just winning the ball back at half back and attacking from there. And they did it brilliantly. But on the outside, this was the one I was going to pull out. Uncontested ball, Port Adelaide 234, Geelong 180. So they've had 54 more uncontested disposals. I thought Port smashed them on the outside of the contest tonight, Finey.
Well, those numbers seem to indicate that apart from the centre clearances, they couldn't win a contested ball. And that's why they play keepings off footy. I mean, that is unfortunately a tell, as they say in poker, because they don't want contested ball. Full credit to Port Adelaide right across the ground, and unheralded players like Bonner and Willem Drew, who I thought were very competitive. But Burton's not known for his one-on-one work. I know his kicking is heralded. And by the way, I want to say something. 29 points up at half-time, were they?
Yep.
Right, they should have been 50 up. They got absolutely shagged by the umpires in the first half, I thought, on a number of occasions. It just didn't go their way, except for one decision. How can 3 umpires allow a player to get a handball on the centre square line defensively? So you've got a mark on the ground, right? Burton got a handball right on that line and he kicked it 1 metre short of the centre circle. Now, I know how far a player runs is open to conjecture, but not when it's actually marked out for you. And that resulted in a goal to Port Adelaide. As I said, I think they got way the wrong end of the stick for the umpiring, but that's just such lazy umpiring. Sorry.
All right, fair enough. The free kick count, for what it's worth, at half-time was 20 to the Cats and 8 to Port Adelaide. What did it end up? I didn't write that down. It was a little bit closer at the end. Couple of interesting ones here. Leroy Jones says Narkle should play every week for Dalhouse. I agree. I think, it gets back to what I was saying about Parfitt, etc. I think Narkle really gives them a bit more zip as well.
Terribly recently.
Sorry, he's been terrible recently.
Terrible.
Well, they've got a few players out of form, haven't they?
That's the problem.
Julian Evans says, at best, Geelong now has to play the Lions at the Gabba in a preliminary, or Melbourne on the MCG-sized Optus Stadium. Do we think Brisbane will host a preliminary final if they beat Melbourne? Is that a given?
I think Brisbane, I don't know. It depends.
Yeah, I mean, we really can't say anything about the venues with any certainty. That would be huge, though, wouldn't it? I think of all the potential home advantages in the finals, Brisbane's would be the biggest. The Brisbane hosting a preliminary at the Gabba against, say, Geelong, as opposed to Brisbane hosting it at in Perth against Geelong.
Could we have a grand final hosted at the SCG?
No, you're kidding, aren't you?
Why not? Didn't Berejiklian celebrate 1,000 cases a day by saying she's going to open up the schools?
Well, I don't know. She keeps telling us they've got the harshest lockdown.
They're reopening schools on the day they announced 1,000+ cases.
Yeah, well, don't start me on that one. All right, let's move on. Keith Anderson says Cameron is another one that goes missing in finals. How many has he played?
Yeah, that's not true.
All right, I'm going to. Well,
no, don't look it up because it. Oh, all right, you'll look it up.
Or you say what you think while I look it up.
I think he was very important in making the grand final in
2019.
Correct. Very important.
Okay, here we go. Jeremy Cameron, 2000 and first final, 2016. So played in a qualifying final and kicked 4-4. That's not too bad.
Yep.
Didn't play well in the preliminary final. Only had 5 disposals. 2017, only 7 disposals. In the qualifying final, they lost to Adelaide, and he mustn't have played in the next final. 2018, Kicked 2-3 in the elimination and 1-3 in the semi. 2019 elimination final, kicked 2-3, kicked 3 in the semi, 3-1 against Collingwood in the preliminary, and
A very low-scoring preliminary.
Yeah, no, give him that one, and that's it, of course. So yeah, look, I wouldn't say overly poor, to be honest. Anyway, it's all contentious. Patrick Aylward says they just said on 7 that Port will play at Adelaide Oval. Okay, well, I think we can establish from that means they'll be playing at Optus Stadium.
Yeah, I'm saying that we can establish from that Channel 7 now has all forward COVID cases for the next fortnight, do they?
Yeah, I don't know. Rich Davey, g'day Rich, says, can Geelong win next week or are they cooked, slow and lacking confidence? Yeah, look, I think they can win.
Yeah.
Look, they lost okay, it wasn't as bad a loss, but they did lose this equivalent game last year. And who did they, I know they smashed Brisbane in the preliminary. Who did they beat in the semi? Oh, God, here we go. It was last year. Come on. It was one of the elimination final winners.
Trying to remember.
Finey. Elimination finals last year. What happened? Quick. St Kilda beat the Bulldogs, and what was the other one?
Port Adelaide?
No, Port beat Geelong in the qualifying.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
Come on.
West Coast.
Must have been West Coast.
Yeah.
Collingwood beat. Geelong smashed Collingwood.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, smashed them. So, I mean, they can bounce back. That said, look, their form, I was just going to call up their Geelong's recent form because ostensibly it's reasonable, but Geelong now has actually lost 3 of its last 4. So beaten by GWS at home, 14-point win over St Kilda at home, not overly impressive.
Could easily have lost that.
Yeah. And lost to Melbourne, surrendering 44-point lead, and now beaten comprehensively by Port. So lost 3 out of 4. They might not go in favourites. As I said, GWS beat them a month ago and Sydney beat them in their only meeting with them this year too. So the Cats might well go into that game underdog, I'd suggest.
Yep.
All right, Anthony, just on Geelong, says they are Dad's army, too slow and can't handle the pressure. Johnson Von Trapp, g'day, Andrew Burt from New York, says, I remember the discussion on Geelong being flat track bullies. THX, what's that from again? THX 1138. We had this discussion. It's a sci-fi thing, isn't it? A sci-fi movie. Which one though, Damon? Don't worry. Aaliyah, a champion when opposition bombs it straight to him. Suds McDuff asks, Finey, you can answer this. How much do you think Daisy and Carey actually despise each other?
No.
I haven't had a sense of that, to be honest. Tell us why you think that, Suds. I've got to say I didn't notice that. I have noticed that whether by design or whether they've sort of been forced into it, there is a lot more interaction with Daisy now from the other commentators than there was earlier this season. I think they've might have been given a little message there.
They told Brian to listen to what she says and comment on it because that's a major change.
Yeah. Luke Thomas asks, are the Hawks better than people think? Yes, Luke? I think
no.
Sorry?
Definitely no. If you say yes, I say no.
Okay. Well, I think they finished off the season pretty well. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if they rebounded or continued that improvement on into next year.
I know different people and it's just what people think. Which people? I don't know. Maybe all the people I know think they're brilliant. No, they're pretty good.
All right. Julian Evans asks, how stiff was Hugh McLuggage for All-Australian or missing out All-Australian? Yeah, possibly.
No.
What about Jake Stringer? Do you think he was stiff?
Very.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, he was stiff.
Yeah, he's been pretty good.
I'll tell you this, Rowan, if they picked a team, an All-Australian team to play another country because another country was good at footy, he'd be in the team for certain.
I'll tell you what, I am getting pretty tired of the wings being used for midfielders who weren't good enough to fit into the prime midfield positions.
Yep.
I mean, you were talking about Paul Season. I'll just give you an example of that, actually. Now, anyone who has a look on Footyology would know we run a team of the week. Tom Thomas does a team of the week for Footyology every week. It's the best players selected in position. So this week he did a team of the year. And of course, despite every explanation I put on top of the team, I copped the usual crap about, oh, how could you have this guy? And well, it was based on numbers of times they were picked in the team of the week. That was the only method of doing it. But just to give you an idea, so the centre line in the Footyology team of the year, based on the teams of the week, was Hugh McLuggage, who did play on a wing, Jack Steele, and Carl Amon, who also plays on the wing. In fact, I'll just read, did you see this team, Finey? I'll just read it to you. So from the back line, it was Lever, May, Ryan, Luke Ryan. Halfbacks were Rich, Sam Taylor, and Tom Stewart. Centre line, McLuggage, Steele, Amon. Half forwards, Stringer, Aaron Norton, Isaac Heaney. Full forwards, Toby Green, Tom Hawkins, Lincoln McCarthy. The rucks, Natanui, Bontempelli and Parrish. The interchange, Wines, Merritt, Dale and Oliver. So it's ended up being, I don't know how many All-Australians are in there, but quite a few. Anyway, make of that what you will. If you've got a comment on that team, let us know. If you want to have another look at that, jump on the Footyology website. It's there on the homepage. Michael says, Stanley, hand your jumper in. Poor game.
No, I don't think so.
Well, I'll say this, Finey. This is one valid criticism, I think, of Chris Scott, that 4 or 5 years down the track, they still haven't definitively ever solved the ruck issue.
Yeah, that's true.
So why not?
I think that they've been unable to recruit a big man from another club. They've had a few irons in the fire. And the one thing about always being up the top of the ladder is that you don't develop players as readily. And the one position that needs a lot of player development is a ruck position. Because I can tell you, I'll give you an example. In 3 years from now, Ned Reeves will be one of the, I'm not saying top ruckman in the comp, he'll be one of the competition's first ruckmen. Mm. That's because Hawthorn have been in a position to develop him. He played games this year. There's no doubt McAvoy and Segler were their best ruck combination. Mm. But many weeks, Ned Reeves played because they're not challenging for a spot in the 8. Now, if he was at Geelong, Ned Reeves wouldn't have got a look in because you just don't have that luxury of playing a player and developing him in that role. So I don't think there's been any or much rucking development at that club because of their lofty position.
Yeah, no, it's a fair comment. Fair comment. I just think at some stage, I would have thought at some stage you back someone in and you keep playing them. And they never seem to have that unshakable confidence in Stanley. I mean, he had a good season and then was dropped for a qualifying final against Collingwood in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, the guy they've tried to back in and develop is Radigalia, but he's just not come to the party.
No, he's a bit of a tease as well. Occasionally shows a bit. Reece Bull says that Mitch Cleary has tweeted, I think, 5th time in 6 years that the Cats' lowest score of the season has come in a final. Just about sums up their inability to adapt home and away form to finals. Is this a mindset thing, game style, or both? I don't think it's game style. I think they pursued this sort of game last year and it was good enough to get them to a grand final. Is it a mindset? Not necessarily. I can't see why it would be. You're talking about a super experienced lineup. They've got 6 players in their list. I'm not sure if they all played tonight, who have played 20 or more finals. Perhaps they're just not quite good enough. And their form, perhaps at their absolute 100% best, they are good enough. But if they fall anything below that, there are sides who are better. And the fact is, as we just pointed out before, they've now lost 3 of their last 4 games, coincides with the loss of Tom Stewart. So it hasn't taken a lot to upset the apple cart a fair bit, has it?
No, and Rowan, perhaps they're an older team that just can't see it through the season.
Well, yeah.
Last year was 17 weeks of home and away with shortened quarters.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's valid. All right, I'm going to read a few more comments here. Matt Lang says Geelong are slow and predictable. Top 6 teams have been lining them up for weeks. Port nailed them. Tim Dole says, how good are Port at recognising and backing young players? The latest is Miles Bergman. He's developing into a great between-the-arc player. That's a good call. Yeah, I mean, certainly, Butters, Rosie, Dersma, backed in from the moment they arrived at the club. They've shown a lot of faith in Carl Amon, and that has really paid off, hasn't it? He's such a consistently good player for them now. Bergman, I don't know how many games he's ended up playing. And look, I know you're critical of Todd Marshall, but Hinkley certainly isn't reluctant to stick by those younger players, even if they have a few poor weeks. And I think that's something a lot of coaches sort of talk about, but don't necessarily do. So that requires a bit of courage, I think.
I'll tell you one thing. I think he does have a philosophy about his on-board division.
What's that?
Big body size. He's resisted the notion of Butters and Rosie swinging into the middle, where others thought that that's probably where they would be headed after their first couple of seasons. Whereas Willem Drew, Dersma and Bergman are more invested in midfield and playing on the wing. They're big boys, aren't they? Ollie Wines is big. We know Boak isn't huge. He's just brilliant. But I think he's very respectful of body size through the midfield, is that man?
Yeah, I read a story either today or yesterday about Ollie Wines being offered up to Carlton at the end of 2019. And they were obsessed with getting Papley.
Yeah.
And so, geez, they wouldn't have minded that one now.
No, he couldn't. They wouldn't have him at Carlton.
Too good?
Way too good.
Okay.
I mean, let's not forget how he ended up at Port Adelaide. The worst drafting decision with a reason I have ever heard in football. Now, hey, I voted for St Kilda and they have screwed up the top end of the draft like nobody. Don't get me wrong. But do you remember how he ended up at Port Adelaide?
Sorry, who are we talking about? I was distracted.
Ollie Wines.
I don't. Because St Kilda went for Paddy McCart. No, I don't know. Tell me.
All right. So Melbourne were in a position to pick Viney and Wines, and everybody just assumed that they were going to take those two players. They picked Viney, and then they said, look, they have grown up playing their football together. They're inseparable sort of mates. And we don't know if we want that dynamic at the club because it might sort of, I don't know what the theory was, a clique within the club. Okay. So they went for Tumpus.
Yeah, Jimmy Tumpus. Yeah. Well, unlike Melbourne to be a club with cliques, they were famous for it back in the 80s and 90s. All right, couple of quick observations. Someone earlier said apologies, I've lost who it was. Oh, John Gomez likes your art selections, Finey. Alex M doesn't like my lighting, thinks I need to go to somewhere and buy a video conference light. Yeah, look, it is a bit of an issue. Johnson Von Trapp is suggesting that Rita Panahi might be the next coach of Carlton. I would suggest that certainly the political ideologies would be in strong alignment.
Oh, yeah. No. She supports the team where her political outlook would be most appreciated.
That's true. Hawthorn. Yep. She might be the next Hawthorn chairman after they tip Jeff Kennett out. That'd be fun. I'd have even less access to Hawthorn than I do now.
Is her middle name Isabella?
I don't think she has one. Or if she does, I can't repeat it here.
RIP, that's all.
All right, that's enough. Dr. Klaus Bremner says you don't think having significantly worse performances under the added pressure of finals is a choke. No, I don't, Klaus. I mean, to me, a choke has always been losing an apparently unlosable from an unlosable position. A choke to me, the classic choke was Jana Novotná against, God, who was it? Steffi Graf or someone in that Wimbledon final.
That was a choke.
Yeah, I could add a certain doubles partner of mine in an evening tennis competition final back in the early 90s. Never forgotten it. All right, let's keep going.
What are some of the biggest sporting chokes? Like,
I don't know, Greg Norman in the...
in many events.
Yeah, or what the one of...
Beldo, 86, or what year was it?
Yeah, well, he lost one to Larry Myers when Myers chipped in from about 40 metres. Yeah, the Faldo one, I think that was a bit later. Might have been 88 or 89 or something.
To be honest, I don't really subscribe to teams choking so much.
As individuals.
Yeah.
All right, we've finally got an explanation from Hayden Murdoch about the Jay Leno reference. It was Jay undermined David Letterman and Conan O'Brien by white-handing them for their jobs. Did he try to sort of offset that by preceding it with a comment about, we've got to feel for David Letterman and Conan O'Brien? Yeah. That was interesting, wasn't it? All right, let's. Keith Anderson makes a good point. The Stewart loss has been made worse with Zach Tui being out as well. Absolutely.
Yes.
No, that's a really good point. Jack Hack says, is it time for Gary Rowan and Luke Dalhouse to book their holidays for every September?
They can't play forever.
Johnson Von Trapp, Jake Kolodjasny makes some appalling decisions. All right. Narkle in for Dalhouse or Myers, says someone whose username I can't even begin to pronounce. So thank you. John Gomez, is this officially the final series where free kick Hawthorn is overtaken by free kick Geelong? Aaron says, didn't Geelong trade Motlop because he couldn't perform in finals? Bobby says, come on, Rowan, Bombers' chances, can we get it done? Oh, they're a very decent chance, Bobby. I haven't tipped them. The reason I haven't tipped them is simply, we're not allowed to say our tips yet. We've got our tipping coming up very shortly. But that's just basically looking at the season as a whole. Essendon's certainly got the better form. I mean, the Dogs have lost 3 in a row. Josh Bruce loss has knocked them around. I don't think their record in Launceston's good either. So I think the Bulldogs are a favourite with the bookmakers still, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Essendon won. Go on.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Alex M says, I've missed Finey's weird rambling nonsense from the old SEN days. Got a response to that, Finey? No?
Other than to say this, there's
Rodney Isco says, Blues said the review was not about the coach and then they sacked T. Do they know what they're doing? No, Ron, they don't. I did a ESPN podcast with Jake Michaels and Matt Walsh of ESPN about the Carlton situation. And we've heard a lot about it. But, I mean, this is a club that suffers from the same issues that it did 20 years ago. And that is there's too many people with too much influence, not directly in positions, in important positions within the club. And there's too many agendas that are pursued. There's too many, sort of petty vendettas played out. There's the influence of former players is still huge at that club, and I think they're listened to too regularly. And you can see this change of philosophy constantly in the fact that, have a look at the coaches they've lurched from. So they've gone from Britain to Pagan. They've got, an authoritarian figure with a big name. They've gone from Pagan to Ratton, a favourite son who they were going to sort of educate on the job. Didn't stick with him, went for another big name, authoritarian figure, Mick Malthouse. Went from that to a teaching coach, Brendan Bolton. Then they've gone for a bit of people power with David Teague. And all these people, like Teague,
there's some consistency there, and that's why they're going to go to Ross Lyon. There is a common thread.
A pattern, yeah. They go from one sort of format to the next.
No.
Well, what's that?
Well, 4 of those 6 coaches have a surname ending in N, and that is why they will go to Ross Lyon.
All right. Well, it's certainly a logical course of action.
Britton, Hagan, Ratton, Bolton, Lyon. See the pattern? No, our producer said Malthausen, but he was known as Scheissenhausen.
Okay. Adrian Sal says, I'm in Bridport Street, fellas. Anyone know where I can get a hamburger from?
Yeah, it's late, too late, and you shouldn't be out after 9, but tomorrow you go to 144 Bridport Street. Andrews.
Okay. Willem van Denderen says, never thought I'd see Rowan rolling barrels out of fullback in a final. Yeah, BT like that one.
Hey, Rowan.
Yes.
Willem who?
Willem Drew.
No, that was Willem van Denderen.
Willem van Denderen. Sorry, Willem. Stephen Smith says, what do you think about Nick Nat making the All-Australian team? I didn't think he should have made the 40, let alone the best 22. They do love him, don't they?
He spat the dummy in a few games this year. Have a look at how he went down at Geelong. Terrible call. Sorry.
So was he, hang on, was he...
Tell me Tom Hickey did not have a better year than Nick Natanui.
Was Natanui named on the bench?
Yep.
Okay, so Gawn was the first ruckman, Natanui was bench. I mean, there have been years they haven't picked 2 ruckmen.
Sure. But if they had to, tell me Hickey did not have a better year than Natanui.
No, I agree with that. I think Nick Nat's sort of presence and the amount of his own clearances he wins seems to influence people, and
Sometimes I think one of the selectors is a 12-year-old kid who collects footy cards.
Yeah, maybe or plays
Nick Nat. I got to put Nick Nat in.
Or plays fantasy football.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Nick Nat.
Anthony says Steve Hocking changed the rules to suit Geelong's kick-to-kick game, and Port smashed them with the running game.
What rules? That's rubbish.
I don't think he changed the rules to suit Geelong's game. Ryan says Dangerfield has gone from an explosive midfield gun to someone who's rarely in there. Must be injured.
I agree with that.
And while we're talking about Danger, Aaron says thoughts on Danger's last 2 finals, 9 turnovers tonight and non-existent with the game on the line in the grand final last year.
It did exist to one moment last year.
When he knocked out Nick Floston?
Yeah.
Yeah, he kicked a couple of goals, didn't he, Paddy? Or kicked at least one. All right. ZT says, killing jokes, love like blood, just played in Channel 7's post-game coverage. Who does the Channel 7 music? It's Friday night music guy, ZT. Actually, there's a guy I do exchange messages with him on Twitter occasionally. I've forgotten his name temporarily, so sorry. But it is consistently good. I keep waiting in vain for BT to sort of back announce Wilma's Rainbow by Helmet or something, but of course I'm waiting in vain for that, aren't I? I can't get the players' names right. How's he going to get the music references right?
Well, hang on. Is this the guy that isn't responsible for the production of the whole evening of footy?
No, just the music.
Oh, good, because I'm going to have as we are Uber critics, I'm going to have a go at the guy in the van, as they used to say, the producer.
All right. Well,
I do it.
Yeah, just give me a sec, because there's a heap of comments here we haven't got through. All right, people are nominating chokes. The bloke at the British Open that choked. Which one? I think I know the one you mean. It was a French guy, and he was wearing purple. It was
John van der Velde.
1970 or something?
Yeah, John van der Velde. Mark Allen gives a good case that he did go crazy on that last hole. but one of his shots was the unluckiest golf shot in the history of golf.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he did the right thing and it bounced where it landed. It was sort of unplayable, but it was an incredibly unlucky bounce, hop, or whatever. So,
all right. Ross McEl says Wimbledon one was Jana Novotná. Isn't that what I said?
Said Wimbledon.
Did I say Novotná or did I say someone else?
No, Novotná. You said the right thing.
Okay, I thought so. Adrian Sal says Pies 1970 grand final. That is a choke. Tony what?
Tony Lockett.
Brad Fox. Yeah, very good. Harper Pestinger, good friend of the show, says casual fans don't care about the shit commentary as much as rusted ons. They're perhaps even entertained by the banter, in quotes. Hang on, let me finish. There are more potential casuals to gain for Channel 7 than rusted ons to lose. Could this, and him being good for short clips for the socials, be a reason why Channel 7 sticks by BT? Yes, it could, Harper. Very good observation. I've actually had this discussion with Brian Taylor myself several years ago, admittedly, but in fact, it was back in 2012. I gave him a massive clip in the Age one day, and he rang me and he said, you've got to understand it's about entertainment. And he's being told that. So, I mean, I do have some sympathy, but it's just, it's crap. Okay, we're talking about this, Finey. How bad was that All-Australian presentation last night?
I want to start by saying, well done, BT, for commentating, because he was quite seriously hurt during the week.
No, that's true. He was. That's a fair comment. Actually, I've forgotten about that. But can I just say, look,
well,
I've generally been a fan of Fox Footy. They cover the games. You don't get the ads. They do have some decent shows. But I think in the last couple of years particularly, they have definitely upped the ante on the blokiness and the boys clubbiness and this obsession with the former stars sort of dominating every sphere of their coverage. And so a program like On the Couch, which was always quite considered and with Mike Sheen, the journalistic presence, and even post him, David King was on it. You got reasonable analytical discussion. And they still have that to a degree, but not as much. But now this sort of obsession with having Jonathan Brown be big and loud and sort of having fake arguments with Gary Lyon and everyone talking over the top of each other, it drives me insane. And then the worst thing of all is having these guys hosting things. So last night, you've got a pretty important occasion, the All-Australian Awards, hosted by Gary Lyon, Jonathan Brown. And so Max Gawn gets named an All-Australian. And the first question is, so Maxie, you've come a long way since that first training session when you stopped off to have a dart on the way. And then you've got Jonathan Brown asking Tom Hawkins about his farm or something. That's not the appropriate forum for that sort of crap. In fact, I would say never is an appropriate forum because it's boring as batshit. But, All-Australian ceremony, how about a bit of gravitas attached to the occasion? We don't all get obsessed and overwhelmed by the blokiness of these former stars. We're not all enthralled by how lovable, larrikin Jonathan Brown and Gary Lyon is, and it's exclusive. It makes us feel like we're not part of it. They're talking among each other, and anyone who hasn't played at the elite level isn't part of this little boys club, and we're all lucky just to have the privilege of listening to them talking amongst themselves. And it gives me the screaming shits. All right, Finey, have your go.
Here. Thank you. Absolutely. Well, you said it best before. This was like going to... I once hosted the Best and Fairest at the Hillsville Footy Club.
Yeah.
It was great fun. It was a great night. The raffle... I made a joke about the raffle prize and I was told off because, honestly, the second prize was something like 20 kilos of fertiliser.
Yeah.
So I said, what's the first prize? 10 kilos. They got very offended. But it did remind me a little bit of the Hillsville Footy Club Best and Fairest. I mean, the farm and blah, yeah, really, what?
But who actually, what I'd like to know is, the people that make these decisions, who do they think, who is that appealing to? remembering that this telecast is on Fox Footy, right? So you've got presumably hardcore footy fans watching it. Who is this? What the majority of them want? Because I don't sense that. I tweeted something about this, Finey, and I'll read you the tweet. And it has had a pretty massive response, this tweet. In fact, just bear with me. It was up to about 2.2 thousand likes, I think. But I just said, much as I love footy, I don't think there's ever been a time where the blokey, clubby nature of how it is presented publicly has pissed me off more. The nods, winks, in-jokes and arrogance of those we now rely on almost totally to present the game to us is effing cringeworthy. Yeah, and look, that's had a pretty big response today. So I'm not the only one that feels like this.
Yeah, it's very much a contracted media, isn't it? Footy media.
Yeah, and you get the same people bobbing up in the same forums. So,
yep.
You know, you listen to one guy opine about something on radio, then you've got to listen to him on TV saying the same thing. And then one of the newspaper outlets will write a story based on what they've said on the radio and TV.
Correct. That's it.
All right. Yeah, we've got a few responses here. Chris Hale asking you if you've got new glasses, Finey. Is that true?
No.
Okay. Ross again says, read the boys club. The way Gary Lyon went on about Max King was practically bullying. Yeah, there was certainly a lot of disquiet about that. Hayden Murdoch says, Nick Nat could fart into a speaker and win a Grammy for album. Well, I would argue, Hayden, that would still be superior to some of the albums which have won a Grammy
Very good.
over the years.
Loved it. Love that analogy.
Because the Leroy Jones says 1 of the 2K took you to task on that tweet, RoCo. Do you mean 1K or just one? Not many people took me to task, and the couple that did, I quickly dispatched into the Twitter outer atmosphere with an FRO to send them on their way. Michelle Grogan, hi Michelle, says, what will it take for the broadcasters to listen? Probably us storming into their offices and pinning them up against the wall, Michelle, I'd suggest. They won't listen. Look, if you're not convinced when you turn on free-to-air television these days that TV executives aren't some of the most extraordinarily stupid people on the planet, how else can you be convinced? They have no vision. They're always looking for the low. They always take the low road. They slavishly copy whatever's going on in the US or Europe. They constantly get the wrong end of the stick. Culturally, they're about 20 years behind the rest of society, i.e. look at the cast of a show like Neighbours or something. You know, it's pure white bread, outer eastern suburbs circa 1980. It's just terrible. And I don't think it's going to get better. Peter Phoebe says he's getting annoyed with Fox Footy's obsession with 2.5-minute montages. Oh, you forgot the best part, Peter, the gravelly voiceover from Brownie or someone. He's a special player. All right, yeah, we're getting a lot of love on these comments. David Sampati, now he's agreeing about Daisy Pearce, the only one who actually analyses the game rather than fiddling with themselves, so to speak. Nick Kosach says, Port can't beat top 4 teams. How are you Victorians going? COVID struck. Nick, come on. We do this every year, Nick. I'm sorry, Nick. I know that, the sort of paranoia about Victorian hatred is oxygen to people who live in Adelaide. But it doesn't exist, Nick. You know, like it's mainly sort of lack of interest more than anything else. I don't care if Port wins the flag. I'd be really happy for Port to win the flag. What about you, Finey?
Bother me.
Exactly. I mean, Nick, trust me on this. If Port Adelaide plays, I don't know, well, they won't play Geelong now, will they? If Port Adelaide were to play the Western Bulldogs or Essendon or whoever, or Melbourne, there'd be plenty of Victorian people barracking for Port Adelaide. We don't see it like that. I'm sorry, but it's true. I explain this to people in Perth every week, practically.
Mm.
Oh, sorry, Leroy's come back. Yeah, the guy that said nobody cares about my opinion. That's true, Leroy. That was actually me on one of my alternate accounts. Patrick likes Daisy, reckons she's very good. All right, we've gone over time. I reckon. Yeah,
I've got a couple of comments. Oh,
Okay.
sorry, Rowan. Shit, sorry.
What?
Is that all right, mate?
Well, we're about to do the tips. Go on.
Well, hang on. Before I said I had something about the production of the game.
Well, I thought we talked about it.
No, you cut me off. Said I've got some tweets. We'll do it later. Do you mind if I do it?
Okay.
I'm a bit pissed off.
Oh, really? I couldn't tell.
Well, hang on. Fair enough, I would have thought.
Okay, so you're wasting the time you've got to talk about it. Come on.
I'll take my time. Is the guy, whoever was responsible, the man in the van, as I call him.
Yep.
First 2 goals by Port Adelaide. First goal by Port Adelaide, they pan to the crowd and he focuses on a banner, Zach Magic. Odd, given that Motlop kicked the goal. Second goal, they pan to the crowd, take a photo of the guy holding the Too Deadly banner on the back of, with the Aboriginal flag as the backdrop.
Yeah.
Odd, given that Robbie Gray kicked the goal.
Yeah.
I just thought, do you actually know who's kicking these goals, mate? Just an observation, first.
No. A very good observation. Yeah.
And on Carlton,
yeah,
I just want to say, I know that their board and their management, you were scathing of them, and I am nowhere. I'm the polar opposite. I think they're doing a decent job, and they should keep going.
Oh, because they're doing badly.
For whatever reason, whatever my motivation is my own. But keep on keeping on, Carlton. Nothing wrong with how you're running the club.
Okay, I'd like to disassociate myself from those comments because I think that every club succeeding is good for the game. Hear that, Carlton supporters? All right, Dan Fancher says he loves our little spat there, Finey. Fireworks, he says.
Good.
And I'm here to tell Dan that you reckon that is a spat? Nah, wait till we get off here. No, I'm just kidding. Finey and I don't have many spats, but when we do, they're pretty good. I admit that.
We move on pretty quickly.
Yeah. I can't even remember what you're upset about. In fact, I can't remember your name. All right. What is the tipping device this week, Finey?
Before we do the tipping, and I'm quite serious about this, in another sport, there was a very tragic thing happen. Now, I'm into my darts.
I do.
And this, out of nowhere, one of Australia's best dart players, we've really only had 2 or 3 crack it on the international scene, Kyle Anderson, who's an Indigenous Australian.
Yeah.
He used to come on to Solid Rock, passed away at the age of 33. An enormous shock, just absolutely floored Aussie fans.
What happened?
He has diabetes, or had diabetes. He went into hospital for something related to diabetes and passed away.
Gee, no, that is sad.
Terrible, terrible, terrible passing. And just such a loved bloke on the tour, devastated the world dart scene. So just wanted to mention it.
Yep, no, fair enough. That is sad news. Clinton Moore says just quickly, Victorians don't care, agreeing with what I was saying, but the Herald Sun will try and make some narrative about backing Victorian clubs. Of course they will.
We love that, don't we? Come on, everybody get behind Collingwood. Yeah, sure.
I've been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely no idea. Ryan McLaughlin says, imagine slagging off for directing in a COVID-affected broadcast. Not happy with you, Finey.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. That's what Ryan has just said. Maybe Ryan works for Channel 7.
Really?
I don't know why is it a COVID-affected broadcast?
Does he know how the directing goes? There's multiple images and the director chooses which one he chooses.
Yeah, I don't know. So you feel free to hop back and explain that one, Ryan. Jack Hack says, well done, Finey. Julian says, Rowan, was there always rivalry between Carlton and Essendon, or did it only develop during the Sheedy years? Basically, yeah. I mean, they played in the 68 grand final. They played in the 47 and 49 grand finals. But it happened during the Sheedy years because Carlton had really done a number on Essendon ritually. And then Sheedy arrived at Essendon in 1981, and from 81 to 85, Carlton didn't beat Essendon. Essendon won 10, I think, of those games in a row. However, it must be said, Carlton were winning premierships in those years, and Essendon were getting knocked out in elimination finals. So I think I think that was basically, the formulation of it. Obviously, go on.
I'm just saying that traditional football rivalry prior to what you'd call the TV era was absolutely geographical. So Richmond and Collingwood, Collingwood and Fitzroy, St Kilda and South Melbourne, and very much Essendon and North Melbourne for the early part of football were the most fierce of rivals. And, that was based on geography.
All right. Dimas Smeaton says, Footyology circulation about to pass the Herald Sun, according to reports. Well, I can understand why, Dimmer. Ryan has come back. Ryan says, everyone is based in Melbourne working on those games. Finey. So, but yeah, Ryan, I'd just say, I'm not having to go, Ryan, but I'd just say, wouldn't the director's job be exactly the same, though, whether he was at the game or not? He'd still be looking at a bank of monitors providing several alternative images, wouldn't he?
And Motlop is not Zach Butters, and Robbie Gray is not Indigenous.
Also, I'd like to point out to BT that Lockie Henderson is not Mark Blitzarves, and I think you've told him about 3 times. All right. And Ryan, can you, if you do have a connection with Channel 7, can you be honest and let us know, or you just sort of, thought you'd go into bat for them? I'm just curious. All right. Okay. We're going to tip 3 finals left this week. Finey, what device do we have this week for our tips?
So the team you pick, you will nominate that team by giving me a finals hero from that team via initial.
Sorry, I completely missed that because I was reading a text from our producer who said, what bloody thing is Finey going to come up with for the tips this week? No, he didn't. He's just kidding. Sorry, say that again, Finey.
Yeah, so you have to pick the flavoured fruit that was most predominantly used by the cicadas on the week of... I've already told you, it's a very simple dynamic.
No, but I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, that's bad.
What is
podcast.
It is.
The team you pick,
yep,
you will give the initials of a finals hero from that team of years gone by.
Oh, okay. Yep. No, it's a good one. That's amazingly simple compared to
there you go, mate. Nothing to do with
All right, everyone. So if you want to get in on this, we will be delivering our tip for the equivalent final, giving the initials of a finals hero for that. Was a finals hero?
Mm.
Yep, finals hero for the side you are tipping. Remember, there's only 3 more games to do, so you're going to have to be quick. I've got Ryan. Ryan says, I do the graphics for the games. Directing live footy is an extremely tougher gig than it looks. All right, now take that on board, Ryan, and Finey takes it on board too.
Yeah,
and
I understand that, but it is the finals, and I'm imagining that the director has a lot of footy experience.
All right. No, well, thanks for being honest about your connection to the broadcast, Ryan, but thanks for tuning in, and we take your comments on board. All right, here we go. So, first final tomorrow, and here's the bit where I get really annoyed about the AFL app because it constantly refreshes. So, Launceston, the venue, 3:20 p.m. Saturday afternoon, sees Sydney taking on GWS. And, okay, it's a pretty obvious one. I am tipping TL.
Tony Lockett, who kicked the point that sunk your team in the 1996 preliminary final.
And I was there to report it and had to file as he kicked that winning point and memorably screamed into the phone as he did so. All right, who are you tipping, Finey?
Before I do, just an interesting piece of trivia, or uninteresting, depending on your perspective. Now, Launceston is named after a town in Britain, I think in England, maybe Scotland, but I can tell you that the town of exactly the same spelling is pronounced Launceston.
That is, I'm glad I know that.
Yeah, so
Could come in handy.
yeah, just a point that same spelling, Launceston.
Right.
Anywho,
So who are you tipping?
I'm tipping JC.
Jesus Christ. Jeremy Cameron.
Whose 3 goals against Collingwood were instrumental in them winning the preliminary final.
Correct, including one early in the last quarter, which gave them, I think, nearly a 5-goal lead and probably saw them hang on in the finish. All right, so from our viewers, we have LRT.
Well, that could only be Les Roberts. Lewis Roberts. Yeah, that's great. That is brilliant, actually. The one player known by 3 initials, that is so good.
But a lot of people thought he could have won or certainly half time in the 2005 grand final. He was leading the North East medal. Robert Rice has gone BD. It's a good one, Robert. That is a good one.
BD.
Think recent. Think recent team, recent final.
Yeah,
Are Sydney a recent team final?
Yeah.
Or have they been in the competition since 1897?
Oh, so GWS, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
BD, recent final.
I don't know who.
Brent Daniels.
Oh yeah.
Kicked the winning goal against Brisbane.
Good. Yeah, very good.
What's Brisbane? A lot of love for LB.
Leon Baker.
Come on, you got to take it seriously if you're doing this.
All right. LB.
One of the most famous moments in finals history.
LB.
Like really, really, really famous.
Oh, you star.
Yes.
Okay, Leo Barry. Yeah, I guess.
Okay. So. Have you gone off this idea, Finey, having suggested
it?
You seem underwhelmed, and it's your idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Leo Barry stuff's a bit overrated for mine personally, but anyhow, NM.
I think he was a hero. NM, Nick Malcheski.
Yeah.
Good one. BND, says Greg Norman. Not that Greg Norman. BND, yep. I'll chip in. Bloody Nick Davis.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
MM. Bit left field, but I like it. Says Ryan.
MM.
Yep. I think most recent premiership win by that club.
Okay. No, I can't think.
Okay, we've got 2 clubs involved in this final, and I said most recent premiership win. One of the clubs hasn't won a premiership.
No, obviously it's a Sydney player.
Yeah, so most recent premiership win. We've done Nick Malcheski. So we're talking about 2012.
Yeah.
MM. Cameo appearance, but important. Kicked 2 goals in the second quarter.
No.
Mitch Morton.
Oh, Mitch Morton. Yeah, fair enough.
All right, let's move on. Saturday evening is the first qualifying final, 7:30 p.m. at Adelaide Oval between Melbourne and Brisbane.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to go for... Ooh, okay, hang on. Yes, I'm going to go for BG.
Brad Green.
Good get. Of course, those of you listening to the Footyology podcast, one of our fantastic footy flashbacks this week was Melbourne's 2000 qualifying final win against Carlton, in which Brad Green, I think, ended up with 4 goals, maybe 3 in the last quarter. A few people have offered that suggestion as well. Finey, who are you going with?
I'll go NC.
Okay.
Oh, come on. Isn't that what you said to me when I didn't know it? Come on.
I'm trying to remember which team you're tipping.
Come on.
You're a bit snaky, Finey, aren't you?
No. Just their last premiership. I mean, come on.
Oh, Neil Crompton.
There you go.
Okay. RDB, says Philip Van Dam.
Ronald Dale Barassi.
SS, says Greg Norman.
The Fiat Schutstaffel from, no, that.
Stuart Spencer. What was the other one? ABC, says James L. Wills.
The song by Michael Jackson.
It's easy as 1, 2, 3, says James. Oh, he's being silly. Thanks, James. All right. DB, says Peter Phoebe. And it relates to our other finals. Fantastic footy flashback this week.
The other footy flashback.
The one you picked.
Oh yeah, Daniel Bradshaw.
Correct.
David Bain.
And AJ Meyer has suggested RHB, Ronald Hitler Barassi, which of course is
mate, my favourite.
Lead singer of TISM.
I do the drugs. I do the drugs. I do the drugs. God, killed me. I mean, that is just the best.
All right, so we're both tipping Melbourne, and the final of this weekend is 3:20 p.m. Sunday afternoon in Launceston. It is the Western Bulldogs up against Essendon. Finey, your tip.
Oh, I love that RHB reference. That's all. So I'm tipping EF.
EF. I can't remember who you're tipping. EF.
EF.
Just bear with me.
Bear with me while I cheat.
I'm not cheating. I'm just looking up who you're tipping. Okay. EF. This is going to be someone like from the 1890s or something, isn't it?
No.
F.
No.
EF. This is good viewing. Ed. Earl.
Earl Montague the Third of the.
How many names start with E? Ed. And a hero.
A hero.
Okay,
Maybe
can you give me an approximate era?
Well, hang on. Maybe you don't know much about the club that I'm tipping.
I barrack for them.
Correct. So get it correct.
Well, give me a sort of decade.
No, that'd be too easy, mate.
All right. Well, it's not Gary Folds because that's GF.
Correct.
It's not David Flood because he didn't play.
Good on ya.
I
might have made it a bit trickier than it is. That's all I'm going to tell you.
So, in other words, it's not the name by which they were commonly known.
Maybe.
All right.
By the birth certificate, I am correct.
Oh, for God's sake. Hang on.
Essendon.
Yeah, got it.
Do any of our viewers have it?
I'll tell you in a minute. Is it Ekin Fraser? Oh, yeah, Darren. Yeah, Darren Pacino's got it.
Who is
and Ted Fordham.
Edward Fordham.
Who, of course, kicked 7 goals against St Kilda in the 1965 grand final.
Correct.
James Elwell says, this is riveting stuff. You can cut the tension with a hot butter knife.
Okay. I admit I was a bit mischievous.
You were. It was very mischievous of you. That's it. We've got 100 viewers still. How is anyone's guess, but we have 100 viewers.
It's not that's it. Who are you tipping?
Oh, yeah, I haven't done it yet, have I? Sorry. I forgot. All right, I am tipping... Okay. JC.
Now you're tipping Jesus Christ. That's not nice.
Any of our viewers want to guess who JC is?
Jack. First name Jack?
Yes.
Second name Collins?
Big shout out to our producer's better half, everyone, who's just asked our producer if he wants a coffee or something. Hi, Ash.
Hi. Jack Collins?
Jack Collins. Good get. 7 goals. Ash, our producer's better half, has just come into shot and I've just woken up again. She's just broken the door handle, but she adds life to this live stream. There's no question about that. We should get her on as a guest one night in our post grand final edition. When we
should get our producer on as a guest.
Our producer's very camera avoidant. There's a reason. There's a reason for that. I don't know why. No, he's a fresh face looking young thing. I think he's very
presentable. Yeah.
Oh, Damon can come on and say hello. Come on and say hello very quickly, Damon. Come on. I can't now. I'll have to reconfigure. Well, we'll save it as a treat for our post-grand final edition. So, John Coleman, Jack Clark, John Coleman. No, we're all wrong because I'm tipping the Western Bulldogs and I'm going with Jack Collins, who kicked 7 goals in Footscray's 1954 grand final win over Melbourne. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this show. So, thanks.
Charles.
Could have been who? Justin Charles. I got into a big Twitter fight with Justin Charles about something recently, and everyone told me he's gone a bit sort of conspiracy theorist, and he's been hanging around with Dane Swan and those guys too much. All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Good fun tonight, and good questions and good feedback and all that stuff. Good tipping device from Finey. Well done, Finey. Very straight by your standards, but I liked it. Good production by Damon Jackman. Good breaking of the door from Ash. And everyone has played their role tonight.
Port Adelaide.
Yeah, a good football by Port Adelaide. Most importantly, we'll just give you those final scores again. And as he searches for his screenshot. And the final scores. Port Adelaide, going into their 7th preliminary final, will play either Melbourne, Brisbane, Western Bulldogs or Essendon. We don't know where yet, but they were 43-point winners over the Cats tonight. And the final scores, Port Adelaide 12-14, 86, defeating the Cats 5-13, 43. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you want to help us, and this is serious, become a Footyology patron. I know we've got a lot of regulars here. I know who you are by name. I'm quite capable of going through and finding out whether you're subscribed or not. I'll guilt you into it if you haven't. Come on, it's $7 a month, and it keeps us going, and it keeps food on our respective tables, and it buys Damon a new door handle. So please give till it hurts. We're most appreciative of your support. We'll be back to do the review of the first week of finals in podcast form on Sunday evening, so look out for that. And it'll definitely do Friday night final next week, so we'll do that. And there'll definitely be one preliminary final week, so we'll do that. We'll do a post-grand final one too, because we did that last year, and it was good fun, and it did pretty well. So thanks for your company, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your football weekend and whatever endeavours you are pursuing, and we'll catch you soon.